Welcome to Coffee and Conversation, a production of Empower Mississippi, where we believe everyone in Mississippi can rise if we remove barriers to opportunity. I'm Grant Callen, founder and president, and today we're talking with Dr. Todd English, superintendent of the Booneville School District. Dr. English has been superintendent of A-rated Booneville for 9 years, and they are now a district of innovation. So welcome to the conversation, Dr. English.
Thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of the things that we're doing in our district.
Super. Well, let's jump right in. So this year, many districts really struggled with the transition to distance learning, but Booneville was ahead of the curve. Why were y'all prepared for this? And why was the transition? Why did it go well in Booneville?
Because we were already doing a lot of things online. We offer online courses to not only our students, but students in other districts across the state. And the idea for this came from the higher ed world. We traditional higher ed colleges and universities that are brick and mortar schools were playing catch up to the schools that had majority of their students online. And with the evolution and the proliferation of technology, we felt like as a district that it was the right thing to do for our kids. So this came about on the District of Innovation 5-6 years ago, and it's just grown since then.
Yeah, well, so that was my question. Y'all started this long before this pandemic. What made you think that your students could benefit from having a distance learning option in addition to your brick and mortar a couple of years ago before people were really thinking about it?
Because our job as a district is to have students ready for the day after graduation. And nothing frustrates me more than teaching students to their future based on our past.
Kids in Booneville, Mississippi, kids in Lexington, Mississippi, kids all over Mississippi are competing with kids in India, with kids in China, with kids in Shanghai for high-paying jobs that are global because of the technology. And we can't say that, okay, they're going to use it after graduation, but we can't use it to improve the process to get them there. And so that's where all of this came about. And this, honestly, as a district, it came about where we had the leadership team in a room, and we're geographically we're one of the smallest, if not the smallest, school districts in Mississippi. We're 3 miles by 2 miles. We wanted to stay relevant as a school district in the conversations. So this is our way of doing this, but being a small district, that's also an advantage because there's not layers of approval to go through. I have 2 or 3 on my technology team. We see something we want to do, we go do it. We can change directions on a dime. And so, but at the end of the day, we want to give our kids what they need.
So your online platform is a way to offer courses to students. And tell me a little bit more. Is this a program where students would be full-time enrolled in this and they would take classes through this program without coming in person? Or is it a hybrid model where they take some courses through your platform and some in person? How does that work?
Our students, this year especially, can take all of their classes online with courses that were already created. And in the past, we had most of our courses online. We didn't have the courses that are subject area tested online. And the reason for this, and I'm talking mainly 9 through 12 right now. But the reason for this is we have probably 40 to 60 to anywhere between 40 and 70% of our kids participate in an activity on campus. And so, but we offer the online things. It makes one reason is it makes our schedule much more flexible. It's a better use of resources for the district to be able to do that. And but yes, our students, our goal one day is to have a completely online diploma option, and also offer that option to other students.
So you're serving students that are not just in your district, but are outside the district.
Yes. We have roughly 365 students in our high school. We have 1,000 students online that are not our students.
Wow.
So we've got 3 times the number of our students in our high school online, which runs parallel to higher ed numbers. You've got colleges that have maybe 25,000 in traditional on-campus students, but they have 75,000 online. And that doesn't mean it's easier. Doesn't mean the work's easier. It means you're offering a flexibility that brick and mortar traditional schedules cannot offer.
So this is one of those fundamental principles that we believe at Empower Mississippi, is that every child is unique. And at least for us, we're agnostic about the type. We just want to see more options for families. So I think about this as you've got all these students from other parts of the state that are participating because it's a better fit for whatever reason. What's the profile of a student who doesn't live in your district, but that is using this?
The students that are not in our district that are using this, a lot of them are advanced students from smaller schools that may need one course. And that course is taught on their campus, but it doesn't work out for the other classes that they want to get. Say advanced placement calculus. And it's not advantageous for small districts to offer that to 1 or 2 students. So they can take classes with us. Now, this year with the pandemic, we've got a different type student. We've got not only the advanced students, but the average students are also taking advantage of this. It requires a little more support at home, but we see a potential there as well. One good thing about this is, especially with the quarantine rules that we have to follow, a student can continue his or her education. Currently, especially in the northern part of the state, we have snow days. Well, going forward, I foresee there not being any inclement weather days in the calendar as long as the community keeps internet access. Because whether your internet works or not is way more important now than whether a vehicle can bring a kid to school.
Yeah. So how does the cost work if for a student in Booneville to enroll in your brick and mortar schools, public schools are free. But if you have a student in another district who wants to take a course through your virtual platform, how does the cost work?
Okay. What happens is we bill that school, and it's very, very reasonable. And like I said, we're not doing this to make a big profit. We're doing this to stay basically, we're doing this to stay relevant in a shifting landscape educationally. Yeah. So what would happen is, and then the reason we bill the K-12 school is they're receiving the MAP money for that student.
Right.
Okay. So what happens is, and I don't mind telling you, it's $225 a class per person. So if you've got one person that takes it, and that covers the certified teacher, that covers the fee, the textbook, anything that they need. They do have to provide their own computer, but now it can be any computer. It can be a telephone, a cell phone. It can be an iPad or whatever. So, but we also have some private schools that subcontract with us, for lack of a better word, at that same tuition cost. Smaller private schools wanting something like Spanish.
Yeah,
Spanish is our biggest course, and And the reason being is it's difficult to find foreign language teachers. And like we've got one Spanish teacher, but we're across the road, across the highway from Northeast Mississippi Community College. So we have basically a cadre of certified teachers, but we also invite other districts to submit names of who would be a good teacher, and we hire them adjunct. And what that does is that helps that school district keep that teacher because of the additional pay that we pay them from the tuition of the students.
Yeah.
And so no longer can your zip code define your educational opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge statement and a huge goal, that we get to a place where there is more portability, more access to options, that you're not just limited. And that's what I love about the virtual innovation we're seeing both in Mississippi and across the country, that more and more options are being offered that aren't tied to your neighborhood or your own community. So how has the pandemic changed this, or how do you see the pandemic changing this long term for the way we view innovation in education?
The pandemic has made it much more relative. And the reason I say that is, as humans, most humans are perfect in their comfort zone. And we're not going to get out of our comfort zone until we're required to do so. Well, the pandemic has required us to rethink how we're doing it, rethink the model. The old model is you take the school bus to get the students, to bring the students to the teacher. The new model is the teacher goes to the students virtually. And even the students that are fully virtual for us, they have access to all extracurricular activities we have on our campus. They're still our student. They're still our student. They're still our kids. And so it's the best of both worlds, especially during the pandemic, because not every child goes home to at-risk grandparents for the virus.
Yeah.
But some do. And some are terrified to send their kid back to a brick and mortar school. Well, we can't pause education for a year. We can't pause education ever again, because lack of education is far worse long term than the coronavirus. And so what we have to do is figure out how to make it work. And the pandemic has brought that to the forefront. And even those that were hesitant about going in this direction to begin with are very receptive to what the future holds. And it's because of survival.
Yep.
Because we've opened Pandora's box on virtual education in K-12. That lid has been thrown away. That lid will never be put back on this, nor should it be put back on it.
Yeah. So your district is a district of innovation. How long have you had that designation, and was that critical to being able to get this virtual platform off the ground?
We've had the District of Innovation about 5 years, and it was critical. We actually applied for the District of Innovation the year prior, and we didn't need exemptions at that time. We need laws to be changed. And MDE worked with us to pare it down, and we're about to grow it now to where the original submission was 6 years ago that we were denied. And MDE's been very helpful. MDE gets involved. Right now, they're approving courses for vendors, for schools that want to do this, just to make sure that the courses are valid and reliable and are rigorous. And the courses that we give the other school, we submit to the other schools and the students, they're the same courses that our students take. And we've been an A-rated district. This is 9 years we've been an A-rated district, and niche.com gave us a 10 out of 10 having students ready for college. So the courses that we have available are the real deal courses. So when students finish those, they're just as prepared or more prepared than their own campus counterparts. And so, but MDEs helped on the quality control. I guess that would be a good word. MDEs helped on the quality control to make sure that the curriculum, that the courses that are out there are of high quality, and I'm excited about what the future holds.
So are there things that you got waivers through this District of Innovation that we really ought to just do away with for every district because they're a consistent hurdle to excellence in schools across the state?
One of the big issues now, understand the mind frame 5 years ago. It's completely, 5 years ago, the iPhone had only been out for 6 years. Okay. Seat time was the big issue. The seat time, and the pandemic has helped in that tremendously because it's allowed MDE to look at seat time variables if the content and the rigor is the same. And case in point, we wrote in our policy as far as average daily attendance and as instructional hours, that a student who turns the same work in as an online student that turns the same work in as a traditional student in the same time frame will receive the same number of instructional hours. It can be something as simple as that. But I think what you're going to see is there are a lot of innovative districts in this state. I think you're going to see education look completely different in 5 years than it does now, in a good way. In a good way, because parents are going to send their kid to the best option. It doesn't matter what the law says. Parents are going to find a way to get their kid the education because that's the parent's responsibility. And so I think we're seeing a conversation happen around some absolute convictions that have been there for 100 years, and we're seeing it change, not necessarily out of want to, but necessity. And the pandemic's just expedited that process.
As I talk to teachers and superintendents and principals across the state, I often hear they want to be innovative, they want to do different things, but either the policy that comes out of the legislature or from the Department of Education handcuffs them and makes it really hard to innovate. Do you find that's true? Or, if you didn't have District of Innovation, would you feel really restrictive?
The answer is yes and no. And let me explain why. I would feel restrictive until I went through the District of Innovation process. And basically MDE sat down with us and said, you don't have to have a waiver for this. You don't have to have a waiver for this. You don't have to have a waiver for this.
And you just thought you did.
And we thought we did. And what's happening is the District of Innovation is a lot of additional work. Not necessarily on the teachers. Not necessarily on the teachers, but on the administration. Because you're creating something from scratch. You're creating, there's no telling how many hours Dr. Childress at Corinth has put into his schedule and the Cambridge and all that. And so we put up our own barriers, and we did meet. Dr. Childress sat on a committee. I sat on a committee with Dr. Childress and the District of Innovation committee, and we told them we've got to be careful about the barriers we put up. Any guide rails can hinder innovation. And so I think MDE right now is at a place where they're saying, how do we get rid of the guide rails while doing quality control?
Yeah.
I think it's public schools working together. I think it's charter schools working together. I think it's private schools working together. I think it's everyone working together. And I'm going to be honest with you, the lines are blurred, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's education. It's school. It's educating kids. It's giving the kids what they need to be successful in a changing landscape.
So going back to something you said a couple of minutes ago about the barriers to innovation or the boundaries that make innovation hard. If you were kind of stepping back and you're looking at our system in light of the pandemic and the District of Innovation and the things that are going on specifically in public education in Mississippi, and you were talking to lawmakers, how would you encourage them in terms of giving schools the freedom and flexibility to innovate? What are some of those barriers to innovation that you'd like to see them relax a little bit so that you guys can do things to meet the needs of your students?
Give districts that are deemed, or schools that are deemed A or B districts or schools, give them more autonomy. Of course, meet the federal guidelines, meet what we have to meet in order to stay good with the federal guidelines. But as far as like let's just use Gulfport. Gulfport's been a great school district. Gulfport shouldn't slow down for districts that are not as innovative. We shouldn't slow down in Booneville because of districts that are not as innovative. Now, that doesn't mean those districts are not important, not by any means, not by any stretch of the imagination. But what that means is we've got a history of success. That should count for something going forward legislatively. And because I don't think we can the problem with writing a law is you can't make it so specific that it discourages innovation other than the way the law was written. I think you're still going to have to do it on a case-by-case basis and a law-by-law basis, because in 5 years from now, we could be having a totally different conversation about what the future is going to look like in education.
Yeah. Well, so let me close with this. You mentioned that innovation has or a byproduct of innovation has been the blurring of the lines between public and charter and private and virtual and brick and mortar. And there's a lot of cross-pollination there. Where do you think education is going to be in, say, 10 years? What is it going to look like? And what are those different lines going to look like in 10 years?
I think we're going to have schools, and there's not going to be a word in front of them. I think we're going to have schools. I don't think it's going to be traditional. I don't think it's going to be public. I don't think it's going to be charter. I don't think it's going to be virtual. We're going to have schools of all types for all different situations. And only then can you individualize instruction. Can you individualize a student's learning? I think that's where it's headed. I think it's headed that way quickly because of the pandemic. I think we may get there de facto, but we're going to get there.
Well, that sounds like a bright future and a great opportunity for kids in Mississippi. And Dr. English, I'm looking forward to watching what you do in Booneville. And thank you for joining us in the conversation today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.